Dragging them, tagging them, dragging them at the hollow point run. Dragging them, tagging them, dragging them at the hollow point run. Dragging them, tagging them, dragging them at the hollow point run. Dragging them, tagging them, dragging them at the hollow point run.
So it's all about unsettling Canelo. Billy spoke about the Mexican beef. What about Boots Chemist nasal spray? AT&T, Dallas, Texas, 70,000 tickets sold. To be honest, I don't know much about Elwin Soto or Takayama. That's for the light flyweight title. We got Kieran Conway taking on Solomon Sissoko. That looks like a decent bout for the WBA Intercontinental Light Middleweight title. Kieran is from Britain. Frank Sanchez is on there, taking on another no-hoper. Keyshawn Davis, he's 2-0. He's looked good so far. So to keep Canelo bathed in them lucrative purses and to pay Billy Joe Saunders, you know, they've skimped out on the undercard perhaps a little, but it is what it is. What am I paying for DAZN right now? £2 a month. Can't complain. It's a steal. I'll be staying up Saturday night, Sunday morning to watch it. Just over 2 weeks to go for the undisputed clash between Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor. That's at Las Vegas. And as of yet, according to Barry Jones, no UK broadcaster has put a bid in. Where's it going? Triller? Fight? A lot of Josh Taylor fans were expecting BT to come in because him being a top-ranked fighter and Bob having somewhat of a relationship with Frank, it would seem like the obvious home for it in the UK. But with BT confirming they've got plans to sell BT Sport, they're going to sell its pay TV sports business. They're having talks with Amazon, Disney, ITV and DAZN, following the news that BT Sport, which airs content including Premier League, Champions League football, saw its share price rise by almost 3% as investors welcomed the possible cash injection. So obviously sport, not a big priority to BT in terms of programming right now. Are they going to make a late bid? See, it's unlikely they're going to make a late bid, you see, because for them to buy it, they're going to have to put it on pay-per-view at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. Are DAZN going to make a late bid? I don't know. I don't know. Sky? Unlikely. Sky have declined to pick up a lot of cards broadcast by American networks recently, much to the annoyance of Bob Arum. They didn't take Lopez versus Lomachenko, Terence Crawford and Brook. That never made it either. On the PBC side, they didn't take the doubleheader between the Charlos in the UK. RUIZ versus ARREOLA, another American pay-per-view that never got picked up by any British broadcasters. It's a shame that we have a fighter fighting for Undisputed in the UK and no broadcasters picking it up. Well, it's still over 2 weeks. Maybe something could change. But, you know, you would think if you're going to put it on pay-per-view in the United Kingdom, surely they're not going to purchase it and put it on for free. Right? If you're going to put it on pay-per-view, you would have purchased it at least a month or so ago so you could give it adequate time to advertise that it's going to be on pay-per-view and what time it's going to be on there. And people can make plans to adjust their schedule around whatever time it's going to be on, early AM. Forget Britain though. I'm hearing people say they're not advertising it very well across the pond. So maybe Bob's just getting too old for this, bro. Just getting too old. Let's keep it real. Whether the Fury or AJ fight gets made or not, we know it's Eddie who's done all the groundwork. Getting old, Frank. And Bob, getting old. I bet you any money Frank hasn't even made a proposal to BT to pick this one up. Is that all you got? Is that all you got? You ain't got nothing. Joseph Parker has an elbow injury, which may put a spanner in a quick return to the ring and rematch with Derek Chisora, who he controversially outpointed. Tony Bellew, he chimed in and said that Joseph Parker's world title prime has gone. He will never regain a world title again. It's a bit harsh. Could be true though. I was thinking though, you know, if I was Derek, would I fight on Sky again? Would I fight on Sky? I don't know. I don't know if I would if I was Derek. You could say it was the judges and not Sky that scored against him, but look at Andy Clark's scorecard, man. Did any of the Sky pundits or commentary team have Derek up? I'm not sure. But with Eddie soon to announce that he's leaving Sky, I would have thought that Parker Chisora 2 is heading over to DAZN and DAZN exclusively. Derek Chisora, he said he wants to have the rematch on the undercard of AJ versus Fury. But you see, them type of fights, for whatever reason on these big main events, they cheap out on the undercard because, you know, the main event fighters, they want paying a whole lot of money, and there's a lot of other people who want to get their piece of the pot. So even if Joe wasn't injured, I don't see it getting on an undercard like Fury and AJ. You know, a promoter like Eddie Hearn and even Dave Higgins will want the Parker Chisora rematch to be a main event. Even in New Zealand, if Derek was prepared to travel, they'll sell out stadiums for that fight there. Next week is probably the last throw at the dice and deadline to get this fight over the hump, at least temporarily. So on Sunday, both teams got their contracts and they're reviewing them right now. And anytime after CANELO and SAUNDERS, we should hear an announcement. If it's not next week, then it's time for AJ to focus on Usyk. I think Team Usyk are waiting and hoping for AJ and Fury to fall apart so they can get their big payday against AJ. They've made no commitment at all to finalising an interim fight with Joe Joyce. And in all truth, I don't think Frank is capable of pulling a fight like that off. I'm just being real. Warren right now is only big time in reputation. He's not really covering any new ground at this stage of his career as a promoter. Here's a list of some of my worst predictions or picks. I picked Adrian Broner to beat Marcus Maidana, and he got his ass whooped. I picked Kovalev to beat Canelo. We saw what happened there. I picked Martinez to beat Cotto. Cotto, at least temporarily, ended his career. He's came back now, but he beat the crap out of him. I picked Thurman to beat Pacquiao. I thought Thurman's youth, and I think I overestimated his ring IQ, Thurman. He's always had quite a leaky defense, Thurman, and I should have really clocked on from the Jose Cito Lopez bout. And then the inactivity, you add that into the whole pot. I should never have picked Thurman, but I did. I picked McClellan to beat Nigel Benn, and Ben nearly took the guy's life. I picked Mike Tyson to beat Evander Holyfield in the first fight. I picked Don Curry to beat Hunnigan, and Hunnigan defied all the odds, and Curry's pound for pound #1 status, and battered him inside the distance. In the 80s, I picked Tommy Hearns to beat Iran Barkley for the middleweight title. Barkley took him out in 3. Behind on points, bleeding everywhere. Barkley came back with that vicious right hook, floored Tommy, and then finished Tommy off. That was a scary evening's boxing, man. I'll never forget that, man. I was horrified. I picked David Lemieux to beat Billy Joe Saunders. In hindsight, horrible pick by Beats. Horrible, horrible pick. And I picked Klitschko to beat Tyson Fury, and Fury took Klitschko's 3 belts in Germany. Well, I fessed up. These are some of my worst picks, in my opinion. That's my top 10. Hopefully, Unrivaled will see this and he'll respond with his top 10 worst picks. Dillian Whyte could be targeting Chris Arreola as a potential opponent for a fight in America. Now, everybody's talking about how Chris did better than expected against Andy Ruiz. He dropped him, rocked him in the 3rd, and went the distance. Did pretty well. Eddie Hearn has been talking about a fight for Dillian in America. The big problem is, though, Dillian, is Chris Arreola fights for who?
The PBC.
And if they even sniff a whiff of Eddie and Dillian being opportunistic and using Chris Arreola as a stepping stone for Dillian to make his mark over there, they're going to be like, cancel. Dillian's trying to big up Arreola, take some shots at Andy. Arreola fights like a real Mexican, unlike the fat, fake Mexican. Like I said before, Candy Ruiz is all stomach and no heart. He had 30 pounds of fat sucked out of him and he still looks like a messy blob. Is he trying to goad Andy Ruiz into fighting, really? That would be good. I mean, like, see, this is the thing I don't like boxers. Is like, look how Dillian's been dissing him for so long. And this isn't enough for Andy to say, yo, it's time to shut this guy's mouth. Boxers don't respond. He's going to hide behind Al Heyman and not respond to it. Dillian's plan is to upstage Andy Ruiz and stop Ruiz in 4 or 5. I see the idea. There's no title shot there for Dillian in the immediate future, so he's got to start getting some mark time fights in between a potential title shot and now. But, you know, calling out PBC fighters when they know what you're trying to do, I don't know. We'll see. A lot of people are going to disapprove of trying to get Arreola in the ring, but he's called out Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz, and all he got back was crickets in response. Would I pay pay-per-view to see Dillian fight Arreola? I may do, as a fan of Dillian, which is a little two-faced because I wasn't sold on Andy versus Arreola as a pay-per-view. So, it is what it is. Liam Smith is heading over to Russia to fight Magomed Kurbanov for the WBO International Light Middleweight title. Since when do Matchroom fighters go out to Russia to fight for international belts? Maybe the payday was nice. He said, yeah, I'm going over there, which is fair enough. So May the 4th, this Friday. Okay, I'm just realizing LaRon Richards is now a Matchroom fighter. So Frank let him go. Strange decision. 14-0, only 3 KOs. But, you know, he's got victories over Lennox Clark, who recently knocked out Willie Hutchinson. He's a good boxer. So he's fighting on the Matchroom card on the 15th of May at Manchester Arena, where we see Terry Harper defending her unified belts against Choi. That's women's boxing. And we also see the debut partnership of BUATSI and Virgil Hunter, when BUATSI takes on Daniel Blender Dos Santos. Dos Santos is 15-0. BUATSI is 13-0. So recently, BUATSI is fighting some opponents with impressive statistical records. The last one of those opponents, Marco Kalik, gave him all types of trouble until BUATSI turned up the heat on him in the 7th. So is Virgil travelling over to the UK? I should imagine so. I mean, he's getting on now, and I don't know if he's fully over the illness he was dealing with. But, you know, commuting, communicating and training with BUATSI is not going to be easy if he's not able to get back and forth from the US to the UK. Hopefully that doesn't become a factor. I mean, he was training Tony Yoka, and I don't believe he's part of that situation anymore. But I do remember BUATSI training out there with him recently, so maybe BUATSI will just fly back with him. It looks like BUATSI is over there right now, so maybe that's the compromise. And it's funny, we're looking at all the new coaching situations, like Derek McGirt, Parker, Andy Lee, Andy Ruiz, Reynoso, Eubank, Roy Jones, and we're expecting immediate results with all these fighters. And I think we need to conclude that this is not a fairy tale, finding this coach who may have been very successful with particular fighters at one stage. It's not like that. It really isn't like that. Do not expect Joshua BUATSI to be Sugar Ray Leonard next week. I'm just hoping he can tighten up his defense a little from the last performance, and then we'll go from there. I tell you what, Peter Leopeng, you know your boxing. He done an article where MORUTI MTHALANE went wrong, and he speaks about strategy and game plan is everything in any sporting event. He quotes Sugar Ray Leonard, who often said you never go into a fight if you do not have a plan B and sometimes even a plan C. Strategy is everything in this sport we call the sweet science. And he says where Colin Nathan, the manager and trainer of MTHALANE, who is a good friend of Peter Leopeng, where they went wrong is they let Sonny Edwards and his camp know that the plan was to chase Sonny until they caught up with him and finished him off. And he says unless you're a runner yourself, you're not going to catch a sprinter, which everybody knew Sonny Edwards to be. With 4 knockouts or stoppages in 15 fights, he was relatively pillar-fisted, and so it turned out to be in the fight, you know? Like a lot of people talk about the work he did, but if you throw all them jabs and power punches, and I don't see your opponent's neck snap back from one of the shots, how much punches are actually landing and connecting properly? Now, we're not going to get into that right now, but why was a veteran, an aging veteran like MORUTI MTHALANE, chasing Sonny Edwards? Why was he chasing him around the ring? Sonny didn't stand his ground once. Surely, what he should have done is stood in the middle of the ring, MTHALANE, and beckoned Sonny to come in. Now, it would be up to the referee, Howard Foster, to either disqualify both men for not trying, or do the correct thing and say, yo, Sonny, we've got a fight going on here, and you're not obliging. What would a Sonny have did then? MTHALANE is the champion. Sonny is the challenger, whether it's in Britain, in the York Hall or not. Do you want the belt? Well, come get it. And then we would have seen what Sonny was made of, but you can't cry over spilt milk. MTHALANE fought a horrible fight, and so did Sonny Edwards. Now, I'm going to get my shots in before some of you throw back. Some of you are going to say, oh, you're still hating on Sonny. It was great boxing. If you think that was great boxing, let me just tell you this now. You have nothing in common with this channel. I don't even know why you listen to what I've got to say about boxing, if you really think that. You know, I was on Twitter and somebody who was critiquing me, I questioned them, if he performed like that on any other country apart from the UK, would he get a decision? And they said, yes, it was masterful boxing. I came off Twitter at that point. I just came off. I just came off. And then days after, we see Derek score a knockdown, bully, outland, and out-throw Parker throughout the 12 rounds. Throw thudding punches to the midsection and head in the same country and not get a decision. Terence Crawford, the original poster boy for cancel culture in boxing, no Pacquiao fight. He plans to fight on June the 5th, and they're saying it could be a pay-per-view, and I'm wondering who against. His top rank contract expires in October, and it doesn't look likely he's going to stay at top rank, and I don't think Bob Arum's going to put up much of a fight to keep him there either. Porter fight cancelled, Pacquiao fight cancelled, Spence fight cancelled, Ortiz fight, is that cancelled? Will he get any big names in the ring this year is what we're asking. And does he do better by becoming a free agent in October?
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Wow. So there's this individual on Twitter, his name is Del G at Really Nice Derek. I don't know if he's trying to do this Michael Benson or Mike Coppinger thing, but I've heard about him before, and if he's trolling just to get a reaction, well, it's working. It's working. He's been giving us some purse quotes of recent fights in the United Kingdom. So he says MTHALANE from South Africa, who lost his title to Charlie Edwards from Britain, they have to show the country for tax reasons or whatever. He says MTHALANE got 55 grand, Sonny Edwards got 35 grand. On the same card, Michael Conlon from Ireland, he got 82 grand. His opponent, Baluta from Romania, got 13 grand. They're saying Joseph Parker got 1,900,000 against Chisora, and Chisora got 1,890,000, about 10 grand less. They're saying Bivol, he got 320 grand, and Richards got 64 grand. They're saying Katie Taylor got 34 grand, and Natasha Jonas got 22. I'm telling you from now, Katie Taylor got way more than 34 grand. They're saying Eubank Jr. got 280,000. Marcus Morrison got 50 grand. James Tennyson, 48 grand. And his opponent, Straffen from Mexico, who sprung the upset, got 19 grand. They're saying this kid here, Dunn, got 6 grand for taking on Campbell Hatton, who got 722,000 for a 4-rounder. And that caused a little bit of a reaction on Twitter. People were outraged that Hatton was getting a purse that size. And then this guy here, Del G, is telling us, oh my God, Hatton name carries serious weight. But, you know, Matthew Hatton, who's training Campbell, he dispelled it and said, no, come on, man.
Have you seen the tweet about these reported purses as well? What's going on? 722k. That's a great purse for a 4-rounder.
It's fantastic for a 4-rounder now, mate. And this has been the plan all along. 2 fights, 1.5 million in the back, and then knock it on the head. Can retire an happy man, can't he? Where do these people get this info from? Quite naughty though, really, because there was a bit of a backlash about that. So they should get the facts right, really.
Matthew, who went the distance with Canelo in Canelo's first world title fight, he said he hopes Billy Joe can win it, but he doesn't think he will. Well, looky here. The first Bridgerweight championship fight between Oscar Rivas and Brant Jennings has been pushed back until December. Concerns over public demand far exceeding what current social distancing measures will allow for an event of this magnitude in Canada prompted the decision to pull the plug on the mid-June date. An emergency meeting held between all parties determined that the fans still won't be permitted to attend an event by that time due to the ongoing pandemic, with the belief that between COVID vaccination and continued safety measures in place, things will improve enough to where time is on their side. We have one last collective effort to make to get through this appalling pandemic, and at GYM, we are determined to do our part, vows Yvonne Michel. So that's a great start for the Bridgerweight division, which carries a weight limit of 224 pounds. It's intended to benefit the smaller sized heavyweights such as Rivas and Jennings. Although Jennings looked fine against the 6'6", 17 to 18 stone Joe Joyce, and arguably beat Joe Joyce, but just didn't get the decision in the United Kingdom. Strange, isn't it? Rivas was able to floor Dillian White, and arguably he didn't lose because he was too small. He just didn't have the craft or the ability or the skill to beat Dillian, more than size, and was outpointed. They're saying Jennings has weighed as light as 218 in his pro career, while Oscar Rivas weighed 221 for his last fight, so he can make it pretty easily. He was 239 for the Dillian White fight, 234 for the first fight he had with Brant Jennings when he stopped him. He weighed as low as 223 in 2009 and 225 on his debut. I don't know, maybe the cancellation is a sign to scrap the division. Nah, if they're going to go ahead, they're going to go ahead. One person who I think is retired now, who I would like to have seen have a shot at campaigning in this weight class, is Amir Mansour. This would have been right up his alley, wouldn't it? Steve Cunningham. Perhaps a Eddie Chambers in his prime, but, you know, it is what it is. I was listening to Lawrence Okoli recently, and he was targeting a fight with Bradis at Cruiser that would pit his WBO belt against Bradis' IBF belt. And they were talking about the prospect of Bradis moving up to heavyweight, because that's been spoke about. And Okoli said that would be silly, really, because AJ and Fury are going to have the belts tied up for a little while, and there's a lot of traffic behind, etc., etc. So Okoli, he wants to fight Bradis and accumulate some belts at 200. And when he was asked if he would campaign at 224, he said, yeah, he would. What I'm wondering, though, is who's going to fare better? The cruiserweights who move to 224 from 200, or the heavyweights who move down and have to cut weight to make Bridgerweight? Who's it going to benefit more? I guess in theory, the heavyweights have got to cut down to Bridger. You know, like, if you're a 260, 250 heavyweight and 24-hour rehydration, you could be coming in at 240. What you have to remember, if you're a 250 heavyweight who's made a 26-pound cut to get to Bridgerweight, and you're going to try and put on 30 pounds rehydration weight, that is going to make a lot of boxers sluggish. So you can't try and over-abuse your rehydration privileges because you're a big Bridgerweight who's cut weight from heavy. Let's see your take. Peace.